My name is Alara Whitfield, 23 years old. Tyler used to say he liked me because I wasn't like the girls who never counted their own money. He said it with a grin that looked honest under the fluorescent lights of the campus laundromat, while I fed quarters into a machine that rattled like a loose tooth. For 2 years, I played the part he admired. Double shifts at the coffee shop, thrift store sweaters gone soft at the elbows, splitting groceries down to the penny, and pretending it mattered to me as much as it mattered to him. "You're so real," he'd murmur, brushing a curl from my cheek. "Not like those spoiled rich girls who've never worked a day in their lives." I smiled, and I let him believe he'd found something pure. What he never saw were the fingerprints of another life on everything I touched. The coffee shop was a character-building exercise my father insisted on, not because I needed the money, but because he believed humility was a muscle that atrophied without use. The thrift store clothes were a test I gave the world. After high school, taught me how quickly affection can be bought and sold. Back then, an ex-boyfriend had blasted my family's net worth across our entire school the day after I broke up with him. By lunch, I had 50 new best friends and a dozen prom proposals. Love, it turned out, was elastic when stretched over numbers. Since then, secrecy had felt safer than honesty. Only Brooke knew the truth. She'd grown up in the same rooms, summer galas where the ice sculptures sweated under chandeliers, charity luncheons where compliments were currency. She could pronounce all the last names that made other people swallow twice. When my work schedule conflicted with an event, she covered for me. When my family needed me, she rearranged things, or so I thought. Even then, there were small static charges in her smiles, too bright, too quick, moments I filed away as nothing. The day everything cracked, I showed up at Tyler's apartment with his favorite pizza, a surprise for the night before his big interview. He'd been practicing answers in the mirror for weeks, trying on versions of himself under breath-mint confidence. The hallway smelled like someone had microwaved fish, and I balanced the box against my hip while I nudged the door open with a knuckle. Brooke's laugh hit me first, a bright, familiar chime made strange by the walls that held it. Then I saw them, layered together on the couch as if they had been arranged that way by a careless god. Tyler scrambled, grabbing for clothes and words at the same time. "This isn't what it looks like," he blurted, voice pitched too high, heart thudding visibly at his throat. Brooke didn't bother with shame. She sat up, smoothing her hair with slow, deliberate fingers. "Actually, it's exactly what it looks like," she said, meeting my eyes the way you meet a mirror you've already decided to ignore. "Tyler and I have been together for months. We were waiting for the right time to tell you." I set the pizza on the counter because my hands had started to shake and I didn't want to feed the moment that image. Tomato sauce bleeding across cheap laminate. "Months," I repeated, tasting the word as though it might dissolve into something else if I held it long enough. Tyler's guilt arrived like fog, everywhere and nowhere. "Listen," he started, palms up. "What we had was great, but Brooke and we connect on a different level. She understands the finer things. She has opportunities." I almost laughed. If he only knew. If either of them only knew. Brooke tilted her head. "I am sorry," she said, with the practiced cadence of a condolence card, "but he needs someone who can match his ambitions, someone who can help him build the life he deserves." It was almost admirable, the way they framed my exclusion as a kindness. I nodded slowly, the air in the room turning cold and precise. "You're right," I said. "He does deserve someone who can give him everything he wants." They exchanged a look, relief and triumph braided together, probably thinking I was taking this better than expected. "I hope you'll both be very happy," I added, and began to walk toward the door. "Tyler, good luck with that interview tomorrow." "Thanks," he said, confusion already rippling beneath the gratitude. "That means a lot." My hand closed around the doorknob. I turned back. "Oh, and Tyler," I said softly, "you might want to ask Brooke what she forgot to mention about the company you're interviewing with." The color left Brooke's face as if someone had pulled a plug. Tyler looked from her to me. "What's she talking about?" "Nothing important," I said, sweetness turning the sentence into a blade. "Just that the CEO happens to be my father." Silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's crowded with the collapse of the story people tell themselves. Tyler's mouth fell open. That's impossible. Your dad works in insurance, right?" "Actually," I replied, "he's the founder and CEO of Blackstone Ventures. You know, the firm you called your dream job for 3 weeks straight. He sat down hard, like the couch had reached up and yanked him. But you work at a coffee shop. You live in that tiny apartment. I choose to live simply, I said. There's a difference. Brooke's voice came out thin. You're lying. I would have known. Would you? I asked. And the room remembered every time she had covered for me, every RSVP she had signed on my behalf, every moment I'd mistaken proximity for loyalty. Like how I would have known you were sleeping with my boyfriend for months. I took out my phone and scrolled to the contact listed under Dad's office. Tyler's interview confirmation, the number he'd called to ask about parking, the polite email he'd practiced twice before sending. I let the evidence hang there between us like a chandelier you're not sure will hold. This is insane, he whispered. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted someone to love me for who I am, not what I have. The answer felt both too simple and the only thing true enough to survive the moment. He stood abruptly, reaching for a version of himself he could live with. Wait, we can talk about this. I made a mistake. Brooke, she means nothing to me. He means, hey, Brooke snapped, but I didn't take my eyes off him. You're right, I said evenly. She means nothing. I let the sentence breathe, then added, and after tomorrow, neither will you. The words didn't feel like revenge. They felt like gravity. I left them arguing in the cramped little apartment he'd always joked was temporary, stepping into a hallway that smelled of old carpet cleaner and somebody else's dinner. Outside, the sky had that bruised color that happens right before rain. I drove with the windows cracked just enough to let the air sting. At the light on Ashby and 3rd, a bus pulled up beside me, its ad for a luxury watch staring down like a dare. I thought about how many versions of myself I'd tried on in the last 2 years, how often I'd smothered the truth to make room for someone else's comfort. Home was 40 acres behind iron gates, a place Tyler had driven past countless times, with a whistle and a joke about old money snobs. When the gates opened, the past 10 minutes yawned like a canyon. Mom was in the garden, in her sun hat, directing the landscaping crew with her gentle general's voice. She saw my car and rushed over, still wearing her gloves, worry already pulling at her mouth. Sweetheart, what happened? I told her everything on the terrace, the story setting down between the lemon trees like a bird that didn't know it was injured yet. Dad joined us midway through, sleeves rolled, expression sharpening with each detail. My brother arrived from his room too, the one where his MBA textbooks looked like another skyline. So, Dad said finally, voice even in that way that means he's measuring more than words. This Tyler has been dating you under false pretenses, and Brooke engineered proximity to our family's name. That's the shape of it, I answered. What did you say his last name was? My brother asked, head tilted like he was scrolling a spreadsheet in his mind. Caldwell, Tyler Caldwell. A look passed between Dad and my brother that made my stomach drop an inch. The Caldwell chain of furniture stores, my brother said. They're drowning in debt. Bankruptcy rumors have teeth. Interesting, Dad murmured, already aligning puzzle pieces. And he believes he's interviewing with us tomorrow. He looked at me. Do you want me to cancel it? I watched the breeze worry the lemon leaves, watched the gardener's hat nod in the periphery. Canceling would be merciful, a clean cut. But the truth has its own economy. No, I said, the word heavier than I expected. Don't cancel. Dad nodded once, then I'll conduct it personally. Later, in my room, I sat on the edge of the bed and noticed a hairline crack on my phone screen, catching the light like a spider silk. It wasn't from today. It had been there, waiting. Small breaks don't announce themselves. They widen when you look away. I lay back and stared at the ceiling and thought of Brooke's laugh inside Tyler's apartment, the lazy confidence of it. I thought of the phrase, finer things, and how often it gets mistaken for objects. I thought of loyalty, of how it sounds like a promise but feels like 1,000 small decisions you make when no one is looking. In the morning, there would be an interview in a conference room where the glass looks back. In the morning, the story would stop pretending to be something it wasn't. I set my alarm, I closed my eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't rehearse anything. The next morning broke in a kind of perfect quiet that only expensive neighborhoods know. The hedges were trimmed, the air smelled faintly of jasmine, and the gravel under the car tires sounded deliberate. I watched the driver pull up to the Blackstone Ventures headquarters, a glass fortress with mirrored panels that caught the city like a secret it wasn't supposed to tell. I didn't need to go in yet. not until the interview started. From the mezzanine, behind the soundproof glass of the executive observation room, I could see the long conference table where my father liked to conduct tests. He never called them interviews. Tests revealed character. Interviews just measured skill. Tyler sat waiting in a navy suit that looked one size too large in courage. His tie was perfect, the kind of knot you learn from a YouTube tutorial at 2 a.m. He clutched a folder so tightly it bent at the corners. He had no idea that on the other side of the glass, his ex-girlfriend and her family were about to redefine his understanding of consequences. But before all that, there had been breakfast. "Don't enjoy this too much," my brother said, spooning sugar into his coffee. "Dad can be ruthless when he smells blood." I stared at the toast on my plate, untouched. He won't humiliate him, just show him who he's dealing with. Mom placed her hand over mine. "Alara, you don't have to be there." "I do," I said quietly. "I need to see the kind of man I almost built a life with." Dad entered a few minutes later, already in his charcoal suit, cufflinks gleaming like punctuation. "He'll arrive at 10 sharp," he said. "I want you both to stay in the observation room. No interruptions." My brother smirked. "What if he cries?" "Then he'll learn something about liquidity," Dad said dryly, earning the smallest laugh from Mom. At 10, the doors opened, and Tyler walked in with that strained mix of confidence and fear you only see in people who have rehearsed too much. My father shook his hand firmly. "Tyler Caldwell," he said, voice even. "I'm pleased you could make it." "Thank you, sir. It's an honor." From behind the glass, I could almost hear the echo of that word, honor, how lightly people use it until it's gone. Dad skimmed the resume with surgical patience. "You're finishing your MBA, I see. Minor in finance. Worked part-time at your family's company." "Yes, sir," Tyler said quickly. "I've been helping with operations and logistics." "Interesting," Dad murmured. "Your family owns Caldwell Furnishings, correct? Stores in several states?" Tyler straightened. "That's right." Dad's eyes didn't lift from the paper. "Rumor has it the company's been struggling. Is that true?" Tyler blinked. We've had some challenges, yes. Supply chain issues, inflation." "Debt?" Tyler hesitated. "Temporary, sir. We're restructuring." "Of course," Dad said, the syllables flat as a closing door. "Let's talk about loyalty." I felt my breath hitch. He was going there already. Tyler swallowed. "Loyalty, sir?" "Yes. What does it mean to you in business?" "Loyalty it's everything," Tyler said. "Trust, reliability, keeping your word." Dad folded his hands. "And in personal relationships?" Tyler's composure wavered. "The same, I suppose. People need to count on you." Dad's tone didn't change. "My daughter thought she could count on you." Tyler froze. "Yes, Ilara Whitfield. You've been dating her for about 2 years, I believe." Color drained from Tyler's face until he looked carved from chalk. "Sir, I can explain." "Please do." Tyler began to unravel a story made of half-truths and nervous breaths. He talked about misunderstandings, about how we were on a break, about how Brooke was just a friend who helped me through things. Each word sounded like a nail tapping into a coffin built out of excuses. When he finished, the silence stretched long enough to measure his panic. Dad leaned back in his chair. "Tell me, Mr. Caldwell," he said finally. "Would you hire someone who betrayed a partner while applying for a job at her father's company?" Tyler's jaw trembled. "No, sir, but Would you trust him to manage clients' money?" "No, sir." "Would you want him representing your brand?" "No, sir." "Then why should I?" Tyler's voice cracked. "Because I'm a hard worker. Because I learned fast. Because I made a mistake, but it doesn't define me." Dad regarded him with something that almost looked like pity. "Mistakes define us only if we refuse to own them. You lied to my daughter. You used her friend's connections to secure this meeting. You think that's ambition. I call it opportunism." "I didn't mean to hurt her," Tyler whispered. Dad's reply was a scalpel. "Intent doesn't erase consequence." For a moment, no one moved. Then Dad closed the folder. "We're done here. My assistant will see you out." Tyler stood slowly, shoulders bowed. "Please, sir, just give me one chance. My family's business is dying. My mother, she's counting on me to save it." Something flickered behind my father's eyes. Not forgiveness, exactly. Recognition. "Then you should have considered that before choosing betrayal over integrity. Good day, Mr. Caldwell." Tyler's hand shook as he gathered his papers. When he reached the door, he turned slightly, maybe to look for me, maybe for mercy. He found neither. When the door shut, Dad exhaled through his nose, the way he always did after winning a negotiation. My brother spoke first. "That was brutal." Necessary, Dad said. People reveal their ethics in small tests. I just gave him a big one. I stood behind the glass, watching Tyler disappear down the hall like a man walking out of his own future. Relief and guilt twisted together in my chest until I couldn't tell which was heavier. He'll never get a job in this city again, my brother said quietly. I flinched. That's not what I wanted. Dad turned to me, softening for the first time that morning. Then what did you want? I wanted the truth to mean something. It does, he said gently. To us, that's enough. But that night, lying awake, I wasn't sure he was right. Because while Tyler had been dishonest, I'd been deceptive too, just in a prettier package. I'd hidden my life behind cheap coffee and coin rolls, measuring love in the wrong currency. Maybe he failed my test. But I'd designed the test to make failure inevitable. The thought wouldn't leave me. At 2 a.m., I found myself scrolling through my phone, hovering over Tyler's contact. My thumb trembled, then stopped. There was nothing left to say. I put the phone face down and whispered into the dark. We both played pretend. I just had better props. Downstairs, the grandfather clock struck 3. Tomorrow, I'd find out how far a single betrayal could echo, and whether revenge really quieted anything at all. The city was already awake when I left the house the next morning. Sunlight scraped across the glass towers, cold and bright, the way truth feels when it's too late to hide from it. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tyler's face across that conference table, equal parts arrogance and desperation, and my father's calm dismantling of his confidence. Justice should have felt satisfying. It didn't. It just felt heavy. I told myself I was done, that the story was finished, tied up neatly with consequences and silence. But by evening, when my phone buzzed for the 17th time and Tyler's name filled the screen again, I realized some ghosts don't fade just because you shut the door. I stared at the message. Please, I know I screwed up. Can we talk? I don't know what part of me said yes, the one that wanted closure, or the one that still wanted him to see what he'd lost. Either way, I texted back, 1 hour. The cafe on 8th. He was already there when I arrived. Same seat, same nervous knee bounce, only his eyes had changed. They looked hollow, like someone had turned the lights off behind them. The coffee in front of him was untouched, cooling in a paper cup. I didn't get the job, he said immediately, voice frayed. I know, I replied. I watched. That startled him. You were there? I nodded. I watched my father ask you what loyalty meant. He dragged his hands down his face. He told me what you really are, who your family is. His tone carried something between anger and disbelief. Why didn't you tell me, Alara? The same reason you didn't tell me you were sleeping with my best friend, I said evenly. We both hid things. Mine protected you. Yours destroyed me. That's different, he said, shaking his head. You lied about your whole life, about who you are. And you lied about who we were, I said. Tell me, which lie cost more? He looked away first. This changes everything, he muttered. We could have had a future together. You could have helped me save my family's business. We could have... I laughed softly, interrupting. There it is. What? The real reason you're here. It's not love, Tyler. It's strategy. That's not fair, he snapped, color rushing back to his face. I loved you before I knew about any of this. Then prove it, I said, leaning forward. Tell me one thing you loved about me that had nothing to do with how I made you feel about yourself. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. The silence was answer enough. Let me show you something, I said, unlocking my phone. I scrolled to the photo album labeled Private, a gallery of images I'd kept hidden for years. You always talked about wanting to see the finer things in life, I continued. Consider this your guided tour. First photo, me and my brother at Yankee Stadium, the family box in the background, a skyline of privilege glowing behind us. Dad's had these seats since 1987, I said. Derek Jeter came to my 16th birthday. Tyler blinked, his mouth parting slightly. He used to collect Yankees memorabilia. His apartment walls were practically a shrine. Next photo, our house in the Hamptons, the private dock, the light spilling from the windows. Then a shot of the Aspen Ski Lodge at Christmas, snow falling like gold dust. Then a picture of me in a floor-length gown at a Met Gala fundraiser, Leonardo DiCaprio blurred in the background. Stop, Tyler whispered. I swiped to another, our yacht off Monaco, white deck gleaming under Mediterranean light. Remember how you said you wanted to travel? I asked. Tokyo, Monaco, Venice, all places I could have shown you. He pressed his palms to his eyes. Please, enough. You wanted someone with opportunities, I said. Brooke has her father's car dealerships. Very impressive. But this? I gestured to the phone. This is the world you turned your back on. He looked up, his voice cracking. I didn't know. No, I cut in. You didn't ask. Because you liked the story better this way. The hard-working girl, the modest life. It made you feel noble to rescue me from simplicity. That's not true, isn't it? I asked. You loved being the one who paid for dinner, the one with the car, the one who got to feel successful. You never wondered why the girl counting quarters always had a platinum credit card hidden behind her laundry money. He had no answer. I swiped one last time to a screenshot of an email draft I'd written but never sent. Subject line, your anniversary gift. I was going to tell you everything next month, I said, at dinner. I'd already talked to my father about hiring you, a real position, not an entry-level internship. You would have been my brother's assistant, starting at $180,000 a year, plus bonuses. His breathing quickened. You're lying. I'm not. I scrolled to a text thread between my father and me confirming the plan. I wanted to surprise you. I wanted to prove that honesty didn't always come with strings. Tyler stared at the screen as if it might burn him. I threw that away. Yes, I said quietly, for Brooke. He reached across the table suddenly, grabbing my hands. His fingers were cold, trembling. I can fix this. I'll cut her off. I'll apologize. Please, Alara. I still love you. I pulled my hands back. You love the idea of me, now that you know what comes with it. That's not true, he said desperately. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. Some mistakes, I said, standing, you don't get to correct. He rose too, voice breaking. I don't care about the money. Tyler, I interrupted softly. 5 hours before I walked in on you and Brooke, you told her you needed someone who could match your ambitions. Someone who understood the finer things. His face went pale. You heard that? I heard everything. I slipped my phone back into my purse. And now you've seen the finer things. The catch is, you'll never have them. I turned to leave, but something made me pause at the door. Maybe it was the part of me that still wanted him to understand, not just regret. Do you want to know what the real tragedy is? I asked. He looked up, eyes red. I would have shared all of it with you eventually, I said. Not because you earned it, but because I loved you enough to want you in that world. You could have had everything you said you wanted. The career, the travel, the family. But you traded it for someone who could only imitate what I already had. He pressed a hand to his mouth, shaking his head. Please stop. I almost pitied him then. Almost. Brooke thought she was clever, I said. But you should ask her why she really picked you. His eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? You'll find out soon enough. I left him sitting there in the fading light, the untouched coffee cooling beside his shaking hands. Outside, the street was loud with horns and footsteps and life that didn't care about our small disasters. I walked slowly, letting the sound fill the silence inside me. I thought revenge would feel sharp and satisfying, like the snap of glass underfoot. Instead, it felt like holding shards. Too dangerous to keep, too painful to drop. But I wasn't done yet. Not completely. Brooke still needed to hear what loyalty costs when you try to buy it with betrayal. Brooke opened the door before I even knocked twice. Her expression flickered somewhere between guilt and calculation, like she was still deciding which mask to wear. The apartment smelled like expensive candles fighting to cover the scent of anxiety. Alara, she said carefully, smoothing her hair. If you're here about Tyler... I'm not, I interrupted. I'm here about you. She froze, the practice poise faltering. Then what is this? The Whitmore Trust, I said. Her mouth fell open. What about it? I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. The one that requires you to marry someone from an approved family to keep your inheritance. The one your grandfather created to protect his money from poor judgment. Brooke shut the door slowly, her voice small. How did you... Our families have known each other for generations, I said. Your grandfather and mine served on half the same boards. Did you really think that kind of clause would stay secret from us? She sank onto the couch, shoulders tight. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said. You're 23, single, and running out of time. Your father's dealerships are failing, and that trust fund is the only lifeline left. When you realized Tyler and I were serious, you saw an opportunity. You thought if you could steal him, get my family to accept him, you'd satisfy the trust requirement. Tears welled in her eyes, but they looked rehearsed. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. You just wanted to save your family, I said flatly. The problem is, Tyler was never on the list. Her eyes widened. What? Caldwell isn't an approved family name, I continued. No legacy wealth, no standing, no connections. Even if you married him, you'd lose everything. She blinked hard as if the math had just turned against her. I didn't think. No, I said softly. You didn't think at all. You saw a shortcut and mistook it for a plan. I pulled a document from my bag, a printed copy of the updated list, still crisp and untouched. I tossed it onto the table. See his name anywhere? She flipped through the pages frantically, hands trembling. No, but there has to be a way. Maybe I can appeal. Funny thing, I said, sitting opposite her. Your grandfather anticipated this exact scenario. That's why he included an alternate clause. Her voice shook. What clause? If an heir fails to marry within the approved circle, I said, they can retain their inheritance by demonstrating equal contribution, community leadership, philanthropy, expansion of social ties through service. I leaned forward. In other words, you could have earned your independence by volunteering, serving on charity boards, leading initiatives. You had choices, Brooke, real ones. She stared at me, stunned. I could have. Yes, I said. You could have spent the last 2 years building your reputation instead of destroying mine. Brooke covered her face with both hands. I didn't know, she whispered. No, I said quietly. You didn't bother to find out. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Outside, the city kept moving, indifferent. After a long minute, she looked up, eyes swollen. You could help me. Your family has influence. You could sponsor me for one of those charity boards. I could make up for lost time. I could, I admitted. But I won't. Her lip trembled. Please, Alara, I'm begging you. My father's business can't survive without that inheritance. My family will lose everything. I stood, heart pounding, but my voice stayed even. Then maybe they shouldn't have built their survival on someone else's betrayal. She reached out, gripping my wrist. I'll do anything. I'll tell Tyler the truth. I'll apologize publicly. Just don't let my family suffer because of me. I gently pulled away. Your family's suffering because of choices your father made and because of choices you made to cover for him. Don't hand me that guilt like it's mine to carry. Tears finally spilled down her face, messy and real. Alara, I'm sorry. I swear I didn't know how deep I was until it was too late. Then consider this your moment of clarity, I said. You wanted to play with power. You just forgot that power comes with terms and conditions. I headed toward the door, but her voice stopped me. What about forgiveness? She asked. What about second chances? I turned back. Sometimes the most merciful thing you can do for someone, I said, is let them face the consequences that might finally make them grow. Her breath hitched. So that's it? That's it. 2 weeks later, an invitation arrived in a thick white envelope with silver trim. Brooke Whitmore and Richard Peyton cordially invite you to their wedding. I stared at the embossed letters. Richard Peyton, 67 years old, twice divorced, one of the names near the top of the approved list. It wasn't love, it was damage control. I didn't RSVP. Instead, I sat on my terrace that evening, the invitation enfolded neatly beside a glass of wine, watching the light turn gold across the gardens. Somewhere, Brooke was probably trying on a gown she didn't want, sealing her own rescue in satin and regret. Somewhere, Tyler was licking wounds he'd earned himself. For the first time in months, I didn't feel anger, just distance, like stepping back from a painting and realizing it never looked right up close. I thought about my father's words after the interview. Tests reveal character. He was right. Tyler and Brooke had both failed theirs. And maybe, in some ways, I had too, because revenge wasn't the same as peace. Still, peace was coming. I could feel it, quiet and steady, settling in where resentment used to live. And as the sun dipped below the trees, I whispered to the empty air, "Good luck, Brooke. I hope the price was worth it." Spring came early that year, like the world was trying to start over. The magnolias bloomed outside the Blackstone offices, white petals falling across the steps like soft confetti. I remember standing there one morning, watching them drift, realizing I'd stopped flinching when people mentioned my family name. I wasn't hiding anymore. It had been 3 months since the interview, 2 since Brooke's wedding. I'd deleted Tyler's number, muted the noise that came with it, and redirected my attention to something I could actually control, me. I started volunteering with our family's foundation, serving on nonprofit boards, showing up in places where my last name was a bridge instead of a mask. It was strange at first, being honest about who I was, But honesty had a way of drawing in people who didn't need convincing. That's how I met Christopher. We met at a charity auction our foundation sponsored downtown. The ballroom glowed with soft amber light, all glassware and low laughter. The kind of event where people made small talk that could shift millions. I was standing near the silent auction table, sipping water from a flute, when a man next to me leaned in and said, "That painting's beautiful, but 30,000 feels steep for a piece that small, don't you think?" I smiled. Art's not about size. Sometimes you pay for the story behind it. He turned toward me. Dark hair, an easy smile, eyes that looked like they saw details most people missed. "What's the story behind this one?" I hesitated, then told the truth. The artist painted it after leaving an engagement that wasn't right. She said it was the first time she realized that letting go could be its own masterpiece. He studied the canvas for a moment. "You can feel that. The freedom." He extended a hand. "I'm Christopher. My firm's here sponsoring the legal aid table." "Alara," I said. We talked for nearly 2 hours, about everything and nothing. Travel, books, the strange power of second chances. He never once asked what I did for work or how I knew the hosts. It was new, real. When he finally asked for my number, I hesitated just long enough to test myself. "There's something you should know," I said. "My family has money, a lot of it, the kind that comes with private jets and complicated expectations." He blinked, then grinned. "And you're telling me this because?" "Because I've learned it's better to be honest up front than to let someone feel deceived later." He tilted his head. "Are we talking nice house money, or your dad owns half the skyline money?" "Closer to the second one," I said. Christopher laughed softly. "Well, I liked you before I knew any of that. Does that count for something?" I smiled. "It's a good start." We'd been seeing each other for about a month when the ghost tried to come back. It started with a phone call. My assistant patched it through to my office while I was reviewing project reports. The voice on the other end trembled. "Miss Whitfield, this is Carol Caldwell, Tyler's mother." My grip on the pen faltered. "Mrs. Caldwell." I know this is inappropriate," she said, tears already in her tone. "But my son, he's in a bad place. He told me what happened. Our store just filed for bankruptcy. We're losing the house. Please, I'm begging you, talk to your father. Ask him to reconsider hiring Tyler. He just needs one chance." My throat tightened. "Mrs. Caldwell, I'm sorry, but that decision isn't mine to make." "But you could influence him," she said, voice breaking. "You know you could. Please, he's drowning." I closed my eyes. I could hear my father's voice in my head. Tests reveal character. This was another test. One for me this time. "I'm sorry," I said again. "I truly am, but I can't help." She thanked me through sobs before hanging up. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the city skyline through the office window. Revenge had a way of losing its flavor when you saw the collateral damage. 2 weeks later, news spread through our circles. Brooke's marriage had ended. 6 months, annulled quietly, but not quietly enough. Richard Payton had discovered she'd married him to preserve her inheritance, and his lawyers were thorough. Without the marriage, she lost everything. The trust, the homes, the prestige. Her father's dealerships folded soon after. The same people who'd once called her darling stopped answering her calls. I didn't feel vindicated, just tired. Then one evening, over dinner with my parents, my brother looked up from his phone and said, "You'll never guess who's asking around about you." I didn't have to. "Tyler." He nodded, posting long captions about redemption and self-growth. "Looks like he's hoping you'll see them." Dad raised an eyebrow. "Do you?" "I don't need to," I said. "He's still performing, just for a different audience." Mom smiled faintly. "And you?" "I'm done performing," I said. Months passed. Christopher and I grew closer. When he met my family, he didn't flinch. He asked my father questions that made him think, not posture. He helped my mother in the garden. My brother liked him immediately, which said everything. One afternoon, over coffee, Christopher said, "Some guy approached me at the gym today. Said he used to date you." My stomach dropped. "Tyler?" He nodded. "He told me your family would try to control me, that you lied to him, that I should ask you about how you treated him." My pulse quickened. "What did you say?" Christopher chuckled. "I told him if a woman's smart enough to hide her wealth from gold diggers, she's probably smart enough for me." I blinked. "You said that?" "Word for word." A laugh escaped before I could stop it. Real, startled, unguarded. "And he believed you?" "He didn't know what to do with it," Christopher said. "He looked small." Something eased in my chest then. The past had finally stopped chasing me. Later that summer, I started volunteering more actively again, mentoring young entrepreneurs, funding scholarships, attending charity events with my family openly. For the first time, wealth didn't feel like a wall between me and the world. It felt like a tool I could choose how to use. Tyler and Brooke's names still floated through gossip now and then. Brooke, divorced and living with her parents. Tyler, working at a sporting goods store in the mall. Every story carried a faint echo of irony. The two people who'd fought so hard to climb into power had ended up buried under the weight of their own ambition. I didn't take pleasure in it, just perspective. When I told Christopher the whole story one evening, all of it, from the thrift store disguise to the betrayal, he listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "You didn't ruin them, Ilara. They did that to themselves." "Maybe," I said, "but I still wonder if I pushed too hard." He reached for my hand. "You taught them the one lesson no one else ever had. That character can't be borrowed, only earned." For the first time, I believed it. And for the first time in years, I started to forgive myself, too. The first time I saw Tyler again was at the grocery store. It had been almost a year since everything happened. I was picking up ingredients for a dinner party Christopher and I were hosting. Wine, imported cheese, flowers for the table. It should have been an ordinary day. He was at the register, scanning items for a woman ahead of me. His name tag read Tyler C. The sight hit me harder than I expected, not because I missed him, but because he looked smaller, like someone whose edges had been worn down by time and regret. When my turn came, he looked up and froze for half a second. Then, with forced composure, he said, "Will that be cash or card?" "Card," I said, handing him my black Amex. He ran it through silently. His hand trembled. "Have a nice day," he managed. "You too," I said gently. As I walked away, I heard him ask his coworker for a break. I didn't look back. Outside, the air was cool, sunlight slipping between clouds. I sat in my car for a moment, the grocery bags rustling beside me, and exhaled. I didn't feel triumphant, just sad, for the version of him that could have been more if he'd valued honesty as much as ambition. Because the truth was simple. I hadn't destroyed Tyler's life. He had. Sometimes late at night, I still think about what would have happened if I'd told him the truth earlier. Would he have stayed faithful? Would he have seen me differently? Maybe for a while, but money doesn't change people. It just reveals them. The Tyler who cheated with Brooke would have found another reason to betray me. The lie only sped up what was already inevitable. Christopher knows the whole story. He knows why I hid, why I tested people, why I still flinch when someone says trust like it's an easy word. "You dodged a bullet," he said once, tracing lazy circles across my palm. "Tyler showed you exactly who he was before he could cost you anything that mattered." "He still cost me something," I said. "Maybe, but he gave you clarity. That's priceless." And he was right. The following spring, Christopher proposed. Not with a spectacle, not with photographers or fireworks, but in our kitchen while I was barefoot, cooking dinner. He handed me a ring that wasn't the biggest or most expensive, but it was beautiful, vintage, simple, deliberate. "I chose it myself," he said, "because it reminded me of you. Solid, real." I laughed and cried at the same time. "You realize this means I'm marrying you in the same place I learned what love isn't?" He smiled. "Then maybe that's what makes it sacred." We're getting married next spring. My parents adore him. My brother teases him. And through it all, he's never once made me feel like my name defines me. Sometimes I still work shifts at the coffee shop, not because I need to, but because it reminds me that worth isn't measured in dollar signs or surnames. My coworkers know exactly who I am. They also know I still clean espresso machines and handle rude customers with a smile. That balance feels more honest than anything I've lived before. A few months ago, I heard that Brooke moved back in with her parents after her annulment. She's working as a receptionist at a dental office now. People whisper, but not with malice, more like pity. She doesn't attend the parties anymore. Her father's dealerships are gone, the trust dissolved. Tyler's family lost their house too. I read in a business brief that Caldwell Furnishings liquidated all assets. Last I heard, he was managing a sporting goods outlet, trying to rebuild quietly. I could have gloated, but instead I did something no one will ever know about. I made a donation, anonymously, to a local workforce charity, one that helps struggling families reopen small businesses. The check was addressed from an unnamed sponsor. It didn't erase the past, but it softened something inside me. because sometimes compassion is the last step of letting go. Standing in the garden one evening, I watched the light spill across the terrace, warm and forgiving. My mother joined me, resting a hand on my shoulder. "You look peaceful," she said. "I am," I replied. "Finally." "Do you ever think about them?" she asked. "Sometimes, but not with anger, just understanding." Understanding what? That every choice we make eventually introduces us to who we really are. Tyler wanted success without sacrifice. Brooke wanted wealth without work. They both reached for shortcuts and ended up empty-handed. Me? I learned that authenticity is the most expensive currency there is, and the only one worth spending. I'm not angry anymore, I'm grateful, because losing them gave me myself. Now, when I look at my reflection, I don't see the girl hiding behind thrift clothes or family empires. I see someone whole, someone who knows exactly what she's worth. And I hope, wherever they are, they've learned something too. That betrayal carries interest. That truth eventually collects. That love built on lies will always collapse under its own weight. Sometimes, when Christopher and I drive past that old apartment building, I remember standing in that hallway with a pizza box and shaking hands. I remember how betrayal felt like fire then. Now it feels like distance, and distance is merciful. Because the real test was never theirs. It was mine, and I passed.